What we do here is go back.
No face shots.
Yeah.
It's everything's you're supposed to look damaged.
Yeah.
Not hurt.
Dirty. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, how's everybody doing today?
Woohoo!
Yeah? Having fun? Last day of the con, it's been good?
Bravo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoyed yourselves?
Lots of energy.
Never.
Yeah? All right, I am out of the sick bed. I'm good to go. We're doing this. So let's get started. We're talking about how to be a Power Ranger, correct?
I have no idea.
Whatever you guys want to talk about.
That is
talk
what
about.
the synopsis said, so that's what we're gonna do.
Let's do it.
Or we'll just go off track. Okay, so, both of you guys. What was it like initially for looking into getting this role as being a Power Ranger? What did you guys have to do? What was the process? Now, you're from LA. You're from Mississauga, up the road.
Yeah.
Being from Canada, US, what's the kind of different, yeah, right, Canada, here we go. What's the kind of different ways that you guys had to go into getting these roles?
Yeah. Well,
You were a Ranger first. You can go with
well, I touched on this previously. Back when 2004 was when the show was aired. 2003 was when the auditions went out. In that time in Toronto, again, media wasn't around. The internet was just kind of finding itself. There was no social media. I think MySpace was out. But in the sense of acting and the small group of actors that was in Toronto, everyone knew about the audition. It was like the audition to book. I think I even auditioned for Dino Thunder the season previous, which Jeff was a part of. It said in the breakdown, and if anyone who's not familiar with acting or auditioning, when they send you an audition, they break down the series, what the role is, the producers, directors, the writers, the different characters they're looking for, the age range, the breakdown of what the character's background would be. And then it was a little bit more and it was actually quite detailed. Not too many people do this anymore. There'll be a shooting location, and it was a disclaimer that yes, you would be living in New Zealand. We'd be flying there. They would be training us in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks of on-stage combat, which was
Amazing. I loved it.
amazing and grueling. And that's the thing, as an actor, you're like, to go somewhere on location to get trained and learn other skills is kind of like it's one of the great things of being in this business. That and when the audition was released, everybody knew about it. It was the audition to book. And I remember I auditioned for the Dino Thunder and didn't book it. And then auditions came around the second year and ended up booking that. And I actually read when I auditioned, I finished my scene, and Greg, the director, and Bruce, the producer, hand me sides. Sides are like the bit of the script that they want you to read during the audition, so they call them sides. And I got blue and red and green, and they were kind of just feeling it out. And they gave us a cold read, and I went back in and did it, and then I went back out and went back in again. And it's just interesting because the year that I booked it, it was a great show, great experience, but I became friends with Greg, and then him and I went on to work on some other projects together. So it's always, when things happen for a reason, it was kind of like one of those moments in my life. Greatest job I've ever worked on so far. Hopefully it's not the last, but yeah. That was in Toronto, so I'm not sure if it's the same for LA.
Did you do physical stuff in the audition? Or?
Yeah, I think naturally I was an athlete. I was a soccer player, hockey player growing up, and I think that's the thing when you look at the cast of SPD. A lot of us fit into our colors that we were, our characters that we were cast as for the show. Like Matt and I had never met each other. We lived in Toronto together, and he was very quirky and brought a little bit of his own self into his character. And me being, and we talked about this too, being self-disciplined and being in the gym. Like, he's in incredible shape. I'm in bulking mode right now. I'm gonna say, I'm in winter zone, but usually in the summertime I'm very, very disciplined in what I put into my body and how often I exercise. And so that, when they saw me, was like, Sky's character was very by the book. His dad was the Red Ranger. He needed to be, he needed to do his A, B, and C's because he was living up to his dad's expectations, which was kind of, again, like Chris was already like that in his real life. And then so it was easy to transition. And Brennan, dreadlocks, cool guy, was Jack the leader, and then that created a lot more of the character building between myself and Brandon, who was Jack in the series as the Red Ranger. So, but yeah, it was definitely an audition that everyone knew about in Toronto. I'm pretty sure LA is huge, but there was a select group of lead actors that casting directors bring in. If I'm casting a show, you know, and this still happens to now as opposed to, I don't know if it's different in LA, but you look at shows in BC even too, they do a lot of like the Arrows and CW network stuff. They'll have a list of like 10, 15, maybe 20 lead actors that are already working on shows. So when casting directors bring out a show, they'll say, hey, you know, let's get these guys to read first, and if they don't find what they're looking for, they'll bring on up-and-comers.
And they'll send in offers to people too. So it's not like, oh, you want to be an actor, you got an agent? Great. Well, then the agent has to get you in a room.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, oh, we already sent out the offer. So it's like, you didn't even get to audition. So it's literally, it's one of those things, you just, if you're passionate about it, you keep going.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, my casting, I auditioned for Power Ranger Samurai, which was a couple years before mine. And I was super into that audition. I really, really wanted it. Had a couple callbacks, didn't book it, and I was just so upset over it. Because I grew up watching Mighty Morphin through like in space and Lost Galaxy. So I was upset, like legitimately. So I didn't even care about Megaforce auditions. I didn't even look. I ended up working at the San Diego Zoo as an acrobat 7 days a week with my then fiance, now wife, and a friend that I went to an acting class with 3 years prior to that point. Again, you always meet people, you never know why. I hadn't even talked to him in years. He was auditioning for something else near the Power Ranger audition for Dino Charge, and on his own volition, he went up to the casting. He's like, hey, I have a friend who's a circus performer. I think he'd be cool on your show. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, like tell him to contact us.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay, fine, I guess I'll try again. And so I was like totally jaded, like, you know, when you don't care as much, like you're more relaxed.
Yeah, it's very true as an actor.
I went, like, I still wanted it in the back of my mind. I was like, they already know who I am. They're gonna say, no, I'll just do it. First audition was just acting. Got a callback, and I'm like, do a 30-second to 60-second physical demonstration. So I did some handstands, got a callback. Change of color, you know, bring different color shirts, do something else physical. Then I got a fourth callback or audition, and this was the chemistry read. It was 12 hours long. They had to film us running in the parking lot to see if we went heroically. Again, I had a bunch of different colored shirts. I read with different people, some of them that ended up being cast members, others that weren't. And then finally at the end, they like had us all like kind of hold on to each other, like be a group, like our chemistry, photo energy. And then didn't hear anything for like a month. And then I was like, okay, well I didn't get that. And then
that's how you do it.
Right?
Audition and forget about it. Otherwise it'll just eat away.
It does. And then my manager at the time called me. He's like, hey, they want to see you one more time. I was like, are you serious? Like, they've literally seen me 7 times between the 2 seasons. They know who I am. Like, hire me or not, it's all good. They're like, no, we got to go in one more time. And I was in San Diego, again, working 7 days a week. So I had to be back in time for my show in the late afternoon. Drove out in the morning to LA, went to the audition. My wife came with me, sat in the waiting room. And I go in, and they're like, okay, you got a cold read right now. I was like, can I walk out and look at the sides? They're like, no, you literally have to do it like this second.
Yeah, like they literally hand you a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, and then someone starts reading you, and you be like, hey, okay, don't go in there. And then you're referring back to.
Yeah, it's so much harder that way. So I was like, I'm gonna suck right now, but okay, let's do it. So I'm doing it, and then they're filming it, and then the casting director like is a mentor, and they're like, open this treasure chest to reveal your destiny, and they handed me like this little box. And so I was like, oh, so actually I took the box and I opened it, and inside was a laminated picture going like, congratulations, Brennan, you're the Red Power Ranger. I was like, really? They're like, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh.
So it was one of those, it was a setup.
So then they gave me like a little basket of Red Ranger things and toys and candies. And so I walked out, and my wife, fiance, whatever she was at the time, my better half, I was like, we're going to New Zealand. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. And then I put on the theme song, Mighty Morphin, as we drove back to San Diego on repeat.
See, that's even just hearing from that. So how many years later was, so in 2004 you did
2014 and 2015 is when we filmed.
So one point that I would mention, so when they brought him in and they had to do a running test, one of the things I remember is
it was because you didn't run it heroically.
Yes, so no, when we got to there, so there was 4 Canadians and 1 American cast member on our original 5 Power Rangers, and so we had not met. I remember meeting Matt. We flew from Toronto to LA and then from LA to New Zealand. So Matt and I and Brandon, I believe, no, we met at Brandon in LA. So Matt and I met at the airport. Never seen each other before, didn't see each other in the auditions, no camera test, no chemistry test whatsoever. We met, I was like, hey, you must be Matt. He's like, Chris. He's like, oh, Blue Ranger. I'm like, Green Ranger. Cool, nice to meet you. Jumped on the flight, met in LA. That's when we met Brandon. Hey, Brandon, what's up? Oh, Red Ranger, Blue Ranger, cool. Yellow Ranger, cool. And actually, I don't even think we met the girls when we landed. The men traveled together, which is random. And then we landed, and then one of the first couple days of training, some of the Rangers, I won't say one of the, but a lot of it was, we didn't, I think, and this could be because of what happened in our show, but we were like, there were some of us that could run, and then some of us didn't know how to run like a hero. And a lot of this is very
It's a certain
like,
cadence. You gotta like. focus.
yeah, and even when you get hit, right? They said like we had stunt trainers and great like Koichi out of Japan. I don't know if it was the same for you.
No, but he left like right before me.
Yeah, some of these guys were like, when you get hit, you can't look like you're hurt. You got to look like you're damaged, because the message that you wanted to send was that Power Rangers don't get, they don't get hurt. They just get sore, I guess you could say. There's no blood involved, and you have to look like you're. And same with when you were running. And there was a few issues where we would do a take, and you'd be running, but they'd be like, "Okay, guys, we got to do that again. You got to run like you're a hero. You're not scared when you run." And there was some issues, and I think that's probably why they're like, "Okay, let's make sure we see them run first before we book them," because we spent I think like a good half a day learning this. Yeah, training someone how to run, and I was like, okay.
Yep.
So like, for you to run heroically, it's like, oh, I'm not tired at all. Like if I were to try to run heroically, I'd get winded like real quick.
Well, I think like in general, like you're an athletic guy, I'm an athletic guy, and when I go jogging, if you jog, I jog and I'm like, got my tunes on, I look like I'm casually running. When you're running as a hero, you got to be like.
There's purpose.
Yeah, you got to run with run with purpose.
Captain
and
America.
you're going somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that was.
All the muscles are working. The sweat glistens a certain way.
You're moving body parts that don't need to when you regularly run.
And going off of what you said too, with regards to like the chemistry test, like they do a lot of that. They do a lot of camera tests for shows and movies now for the actors to get to know each other and see them what their chemistry is like on screen. Whereas, and I heard previous and even after our show that there was some cast that, and I don't know who I'm not naming names, but I've heard rumors through the mill, so take this with a grain of salt. But there was some cast that potentially someone didn't get along with somebody else, someone didn't like this. Because think about it, you don't know these people, but then immediately you're spending 12 hours a day with each other.
Yeah,
right?
for 8 months.
For 8 months.
In another country.
And sometimes it's like, midnight and you're still on set or whatever it is, and you're kind of like, after a long day, and there's no more being nice anymore. It's like, this is how I feel, this is how I am, it's midnight, I'm tired, da-da-da-da. And our cast, we never met before, and we just kind of had a good chemistry, and we got along, we went out together, we had dinners together, everyone kind of just meshed well. And it made for good chemistry on set. We even allowed for some of our off-screen jokes. We'd think something was funny, or we'd think, hey, well, that would work in the show. Talk to the writers, talk to the producers, be like, hey, can we pop this in as one of our character traits? And they're like, yeah, okay, that works. And so it made for some expansion in that sense. But yeah, I can imagine, like I said, the camera test, and some people just don't get along.
Yeah.
And that's what I noticed. I watched all the Power Rangers series while I was in my second year of college. Just went through all of them because I avoided homework like it was my job.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
so you
major.
I almost failed.
You got your MBA in Power Ranger.
It was almost my major. Yeah, so I watched it all, and then I rewatched your guys' series recently, and I noticed that with both your series, the chemistry and even the first episode was really strong, especially between you and Jack. Yeah, the Red Ranger. It was interesting to see because your characters are polar opposites almost, and you both have to kind of learn from each other. Jack needs to learn how to be more serious, and Sky needs to learn how to kind of relax. Like you're a more militarized character.
It's actually funny too. One of the first episodes, I want to say Ranger Board was around, which is a platform that Power Ranger fans talk about issues and topics and episodes. And thank God that social media wasn't around, because one of the first episodes, my commander says to me, when he's picking the colors of the Rangers, and Red is obviously the leader, he says, "Would you follow Sid into battle?" And Sid is our Pink Ranger, and I kind of laugh, and I'm like, sure, she's a girl. I'm like, and nowadays in this, as girl power is all I'm all for it. I got 2 older sisters, I got a younger sister, I love it. But as a character, when I said that, there was backlash on the web, and the web wasn't the web as it is now. So think of it, in 2004, Facebook wasn't around.
You met on MySpace.
Yeah, and people were like, I can't believe you could say that, da, da, da. And I could just imagine if that was done now, people would have hated it. And people did. People said to me, have come up to me and said, I hated you when the series first started. I hated your character. You were all like, Mr. I'm the coolest, and I'm trying to be the boss, and then you didn't want to follow Sid into the battle. But again, it's again up to, I give hats off to our creators, producers, and writers. That conflict that my character had to overcome of following anyone into battle, me being a team member, and so on, and that led for a lot of head bumping with Jack as well.
And his character development too.
Oh, exactly.
Even topics like that, like someone has to be into the person that you have to be a dynamic character. if you were perfect from the beginning, it'd be
Yeah.
a boring show. There's no growth.
No, exactly.
So even if you were to be that in modern day, I
Yeah.
still think it would work as long as at the end you stop doing that.
Yeah. Well, even Greg had to fight for because we were B squad in our Power Ranger series, and A squad had gone missing, and Greg, our producer and director, wanted A squad Red Ranger to be a female, and that was something that was like never done in any of the series prior. And they were like, he had to battle for it. He was like, no, Red cannot be a girl. It's not possible. He's like, I want Red to be a girl for A Squad. That's it. Like, bottom line. I'm the director, I'm the writer, I'm the producer. Make it happen. And you got it. Like, it's like anything. And I touched on this yesterday when I talked about filmmaking. When I did things, shows like Star Trek or shows like Power Rangers. There's the executives, and then there's like network executives that have to make a decision, and everyone has a little bit of their say. And we were under Disney, and think about how many people that work for Disney that are higher ups that would say, who said what? They want a Red Ranger that's a girl, I don't know, and then pass it along, and then pass it back down the chain. And he fought for it, but it worked out. And our A Squad Red Ranger was a female, which was kind of groundbreaking for Power Rangers. Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that, and you talk about auditioning for Samurai. Because I think it was Samurai where they actually introduced a Red Ranger caster and everything, where she became the leader of the Power Ranger squad in Samurai. You talked about being a fan of the show from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. For you, what was it like getting into the suit for the first time, actually wearing the Ranger suit and realizing, oh my gosh, this is my child?
That was so Morphicon is where it's like the biggest Power Ranger convention, like at least in the United States, if not the world. Gets bigger and bigger, but I actually went to it before I was a Power Ranger, just as a normal, my friend was in Teen Wolf and he was invited there, and so I just tagged along, and then I was like, oh, this is cool, Power Rangers, I could watch this, and I took a picture with some guy cosplaying as the original Megazord, and then later on when I became a Power Ranger, I found that photo and I hashtagged it. He's like, and the guy, whoever it was, found the picture. He's like, that was me. And I was like, that's so random.
That's cool.
And so it's just, you never know where life is going to take you.
Yeah.
And I literally I dressed up as the Power Ranger. I had a Green Ranger over at my birthday party when I was a kid. You don't think, you're just like, that's never going to be me. But sometimes it can. If you really push for things and you really try, you can't just dream about something and not put in the work. I trained in acrobatics and martial arts, and I became an actor, and the opportunity presented itself. And then putting on the spandex suit, whatever, the first time was at Morphicon when I was announced as a Power Ranger, and it was just so surreal because they flew out the suits from Japan, so they weren't fitted to us yet. We got new ones in New Zealand, but it fit pretty well, and we're all shiny and glistening. They gave me a haircut backstage because my hair is too big. It was still really big if you see the reveal. We walk out and you just have to say Dino Charge ready. It's what does that even mean? That's it. Okay, so I walk out.
Just morph.
Dino Charge ready, and then smile. I was people seem to like it. They're all clapping. I was like,
And even that in itself, morphing we had to go to morph school. Not morph school, but we literally had to morph over and over and over and over to be exactly, everyone had to be on point, on cue, saying the exact same time, holding it with strength.
Like Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, it was literally choreographed. Everyone had to be on it. It was funny. And touching on what you said too, and being in this business of entertainment and as actors, it's tough to continuously be positive and put out the good energy and say, hey, there's a role out there, it's coming and whatnot. You do put the work in, you put the time in, but it's like you said, one day, how I got my Power Ranger audition versus how I got my Star Trek audition was completely different, and it's dead, and all of a sudden the phone rings and you get a call and it's like, okay, and then you get that second call saying, hey, you booked it, and then next thing you know, your world's upside down and you're a Power Ranger.
I find it happens a lot, at least in my life, when I'm about to quit. Because when I was working at the zoo, I had a 2-year dry spell. I booked one modeling job in those 2 years. I was like, I can't afford making a living like this. I'm going to go back to school because I had my associate's degree. I was like, I'm going to get my bachelor's in kinesiology because I also love fitness and personal training. And so I was like, forget it. And so I joined the college, I called, I was going to start when I finished the zoo, and then this audition came in, and then it started going, and then I booked it. I was like, sorry, college, I'll come back, I promise. And so they're like, we'll waive your re-entry, your tuition that comes, they'd like to pay to join. So actually, the last month I was filming Rangers, I started a hybrid program. So I was actually on set and then doing school in between film and takes, and then came back, got my degree, and then jumped back full force into acting.
Wow.
You talked about how the suits came in from Japan. I know that in the earlier series, I'm not so sure about the later series, a lot of the fight scenes they actually took from the Japanese show and just kind of
Dubbed it.
dubbed. Yeah, voice dubbed.
Voice dubbed it, yeah.
So how many fight scenes did you guys actually, like the ones that you guys were actually in the fight, you could see your face, but were you guys ever in costume fighting in scenes, or?
Not in mine.
I mean, I think well, we can explain it in the sense of shooting a show with 5 lead actors is very difficult.
We had 10 Rangers.
Yeah, even with 10. So you think that, I'll speak on the fact that we had 5. So we would come in if there was a big scene in the command center, all of us rush in, our commander says something. Now if each of us has a line, they have to do a wide shot and then 5 singles that they would usually relight for, depending, or they would do a 2 shot and then a 3 shot. So all these resetups take up time, right? And then when we would start to fight, if we were out in the street, our show, we'd have our cadet uniforms on, and it'd be like, a quick little physical fight, and then our evil doer would morph to become this big monster, and then, stuff would get serious, and we would have to, okay, it's time for us to get serious, let's morph. And to be honest, because of the lack of time, they were like, as soon as you morph, we have the footage, we'll dub it over. And I mean, it saves on budget, it saves on time,
sure.
but just because the fact that there was a lot of drama, and they do well on keeping it focused on the characters, because I think, a lot of the kids or fans want to see that drama and the turmoil and the development of the characters as much as they want to see the fighting. And they do a great job of balancing out both. But yeah, no, as soon as we would morph, it's like next the stunt guys would come in and we're off to shoot another scene.
Yeah, we had first unit and second unit.
Yeah.
So second unit for us was the stunt unit. And we would go on that unit when we had civilian fights, when we weren't morphed.
Yeah.
And they'd let us do what we were comfortable with. Like my Blue Ranger, Yoshi, and myself were both acrobatic in nature, and he actually
Yoshi was amazing.
Yeah, he's actually a stuntman.
Damage.
Yeah. So I love you.
Be there.
Yeah. So like, we had, these guys, like him and I actually were like acrobatic-y, so we got to do some fights, and then, but in suit though, like my season shot a lot of original in suit footage. Well, that actually was in New Zealand, but again, it was like when we morphed, it became that, and then we go run off to first unit and then shoot acting role stuff.
Yeah.
So
they would simultaneously be shooting, like we would be in our cadets shooting a dramatic scene inside the bridge or inside the command center, but our morphed group would be shooting something outside, and then they would do a bit of the original footage, and then they would usually when the monsters came, like the oversized.
Yeah, the Zord was already shot.
The Zord was already pretty shot.
We reshot our interior of our cockpit, but the Zord fight is all Japan.
Yeah.
How many episodes did you shoot? Like, how fast did you shoot an episode? We did 3 every 9 days.
Really?
Yeah.
I think ours, we did 1 episode a week. I think
we were
every
crazy.
10 days was an episode.
Yeah, which is normal. 3 every 9 is not normal.
Yeah.
It was very fast.
Well, especially too with like 10 Rangers. I mean, I mean, you'd be, and I think I mentioned this too, and you'd come into the command center, you'd all come running in. You'd have to stagger, right? So if the camera was here, red would show up, and then blue would have to just be just in front, and then, green, and then pink, and then yellow. And then, I'd be one step forward, and be like, cut, we can't see Brandon. I'm like, okay, going again, come in. Yes, and it'd be like Brandon right here. And so you have to time this, and it's like that's why they give you marks on the floor, and you got to catch someone's light. If I lean too far, his face is dark, and he's not getting any light, and you can't see it.
Yep.
So there was a lot of that, and plus then you add sense of humor and jokes and being silly and laughing. And
It's complicated. It takes a long time. It's not just like
guys, we're running out of daylight here.
Yeah, it's not taking 50 takes.
That would be fun. Like one day, our doggy Kruger suit caught fire.
Ooh.
He had all these like servos and like all this mechanical stuff in his head, and he comes in and he starts to smoke, and we're trying to like hold a serious face, and we're like, he's on fire. And they're like, cut, get him out of the suit. So there's everything can. There's always something that happens that can go wrong, or you last more time than it should.
Yeah. So would you guys consider returning to the franchise?
If they asked.
Yeah,
I
think everybody. I think
Yeah.
I don't think there's a Ranger out there that has done the show that said, hey, they want you to come back.
No,
Yeah.
even if they don't like it anymore. I mean, New Zealand is one of the most beautiful places on this planet. Like, why would you not go?
And as actors, we just want to act.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to act.
Yeah.
That's all I want to do. That's why I create my own stuff, and I just want to continue creating and acting. Because otherwise, like you said, when you go in that 2-year low, you're like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to give up.
Yep.
And especially if you're not surrounded yourself. Like, I don't have a lot of my friends that I grew up with. aren't actors.
My bad.
You know, and when I hang out with them, they're great. I love them. We watch sports together. We can do that. But if I'm hanging out with him all day, when we're talking, creating, acting, this and that, it starts to get those juices flowing. Then you're like, hey, let's make something. Let's shoot a scene together.
Yeah.
Let's do a fight scene. And
It inspires you to keep going.
as long as you keep creating, and then at the same time too, it also challenges yourself. Like, let's do a fight scene in a convention and see if we can film it and how cool it can be. And then that gives you that aspiration to keep on.
And it was really cool in your series because I think it was like the last episode, it was announced that you were the new Red Ranger of your team, right? It would have been really cool to see you get into the Red Ranger outfit and see you.
Well, yeah,
more
I
fit
have like a
Red Ranger.
jacket.
Yeah.
But now it's again, like you said, if they were to bring us back, I've been told about this comic that now I've gone from Red Ranger to now Commander.
Yeah.
And there's a comic that's come out.
Boom Studios does comics.
Yeah, and Tommy, the original Green, Jason David Frank, comes and confronts me about his son. And like Sky's got like a scar over his eye and something like that. And I'm like, even if I was to work with one of my buddies and shoot a spoof of something like that, of like, to match the comic, still be fun. We might get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because everything is permission too, right?
Yeah.
You gotta get, but
typically if you're doing something that shows Rangers in a positive light and continues, they don't seem to mind. Like I've done fan films with people who are pretty big on YouTube, like Chris Cantata of Cantata Force and Danny Cast. I always say his last name wrong. Like Geeks of East LA, like they have big YouTube following, and so I do videos with them a lot. So I got in trouble yet.
And there was a few years ago, like a gritty version of the Power Rangers was
the bootleg one.
Yeah.
I was in New Zealand when that happened.
Yeah. So that was James Vanderbeek was in that, right? So and I think it was the director was the same guy. Is it not? I want to say director X, but not. But it was some director that was always doing these things, and they got a lot of backlash because it was great for us adults. It was great for us adults, but you show that to a younger generation, they're like, why is it so dark and doomy and scary, right? And that's the thing with Power Rangers. You could take the idea of creating these teenage assassins, basically, and see what happens to them 20 years down the road. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to take a toll, and that's what this dark version was. It was like, okay, whoa, these guys took a dark path.
And I almost look at that short film as kind of a tester to see how the movie would do. Because the movie went dark, but it still had that whole. It went back to the original theme song.
Yeah, it was very.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it. It was very lighthearted. It wasn't too crazy.
I think like it didn't have a firm stance of being overly serious or dark. It kind of took this middle road, which turned some people off because they're like, I want it campy, I want it serious, and it didn't hit.
And that's the thing, like when you're hitting a fan base that there's fans that are 5, and there's fans that are 35, 45.
They could have reshot it 50 times and someone would have had an issue.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's with any franchise, right?
Yeah.
Like Marvel, DC, Power Rangers, anything, anyone's gonna have a complaint. Speaking of, it's in comics now. It's been made into movies. It's 25 seasons, 800 episodes. What do you think it is about Power Rangers that gives it that kind of legacy? Where it just seems like it won't end because it's just constantly got a fan base that'll stick by it.
I think a lot of it is the fact that there's, like you mentioned, there's different personalities. There's someone that everyone can relate to. There's always like, there's the leader athletic person. There's the person who's into science, or sometimes next season maybe the science person is the leader. Like they always switch it, but there's always someone like, oh, I'm like that person, or I'm like that person. They share the same interests. Anyone could be a hero. You don't need to, be crazy, like martial artsy all the time.
I think one of the things too is the way they changed this series and changed the dynamic of the show. I think after SPD, and I say this on my own doing, is that SPD, when you think of when it came out, X-Men was really popular, right? So mutants, we were kind of basically mutants living in a cadet space base, policing the world of aliens and humans. And then the year after, I believe it was Mystic Force, which was more Harry Potter-ish. They were magic and whatnot. And I think regardless, if you're a fan of sci-fi or anything like that in general, you can find something that you can relate to, right? Don't get me wrong, the original cast in the first 5 seasons, it was great. And I remember going to school and this series continued along with the story. But then when they changed it and everything was different, I think you get people coming back to the show ready for a new season, going, okay, what's it going to be this year? What's different this year? And then they also tie it in with the reunion episode, bringing back the previous season, which allows for the whole universe itself to somehow stay connected.
Some kind of cohesiveness, even though it's not as tight as some people want it to be.
But
like in my season, they finally established that there's an alternate dimension. Like Dino Charge exists outside the Mighty Morphin and everyone else's world. So does RPM. Like our two are different realities, which is cool because now the whole Shattered Grid thing, like it makes sense if you read the comics. Like there's literally like the multiverse in DC Comics, or even they have the same kind of thing in Marvel. They haven't explored it in the movies, but there's different. Like the Infinity Stones are supposed to only work in that specific universe. So if Thanos went to a different universe, his Infinity Stones would not work.
Wouldn't work. Yeah.
So it's cool.
It's cool. I mean, like, hey, again, I had to answer questions about this with the fact that my father is the Red Ranger from Time Force, but in the photo that I'm holding in my series,
Wait, is he?
yeah, so it doesn't look like Jason Font. Right, so I'm holding his helmet because my dad was taken from an evildoer, and he was taken from me, and I'm sitting there holding his helmet, and I'm looking at a picture.
Wait, did your dad die?
Yeah, so but then it's Time Force, right? So we shot in 2025. Time Force existed prior, I believe, but then
Because they went back, but they were also in the future.
yeah, so he was in the future. So trying to put together these timelines when you get questions of like, so your dad was Jason Font, but in the picture you're holding, it doesn't look like Jason Font. And I'm like, well, okay, let's put this together.
So Time Force happened. So you guys also have time travel abilities?
We were shot in the future. Like it was 2025 in our year.
See, because the Red Ranger from Time Force was from the back.
So, I get it. Okay.
It's gonna be tough to explain.
Yeah. So you're the Time Force Ranger who is in the present because Time Force the rest of them came from. So they're ahead of you in time, except him.
Yeah, because he dies, and then that's why I joined cadets to become the Red Ranger.
He still hasn't died. He's still
So maybe he's in an alternate universe. So yeah, this is these are the questions we deal with, and I'm like, okay, try to connect the dots, and there we go.
Well, it's interesting because is anyone a Zelda fan? Anyway, Zelda, Nintendo, like Link, they have a timeline that's also they try to weave together, but they have it different depending on if Link would have won in Ocarina of Time versus Ganondorf. It changes the timeline. So they have multiple games going off of the fact that he won. Then they have multiple games going off of that he lost.
Like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, so maybe you're the one where Jason Font lost.
Exactly.
And then there's another one, maybe Jason Font didn't.
Yeah.
But,
these are the things you got to think about when you shoot a production.
Right.
And all it was they just brought in a helmet. They brought in the helmet. It's like, oh, that's Time Force helmet. Then they had to explain this whole time.
They set themselves up.
Now, if that helmet was something different, would have been a completely different story.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably in the writer's room, they're like, hey, it'd be cool if we did this, not realizing that they had a.
That's exactly what happened. They were like, hey, we'll just give them this helmet. It's a Red Ranger, and I'm like, cool. And I didn't know. And they're
Was
like,
Time Force shot after you or before you?
Before. Yeah. So that was the one. Yeah. Hence the helmet. That's why the helmet was there, right?
Why didn't they have Jason Font actually have a picture then if it shot first?
I have no
Okay,
idea.
anyway.
I have no idea.
Carry on.
Call them up, fly them out to New Zealand, take a photo, fly back.
Just, hey, take a selfie, man. We'll send you
we need a son too, but
Yeah.
you have a son there.
Yeah.
See, and this is an off-topic issue I have. In shows or movies when they have like a photo of a family, but it's obviously photoshopped and you have all of those actors on set, like just take a photo. Just right there, right
Well,
there.
sometimes they do.
Funny, too.
They they'll bring you in, they'll be like, okay, we need a still photo. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've even done some jobs where I've stood in for photos, where they're like, hey, we need a photo double on set today. Like, are you available as, out of work actors?
Yeah.
Well, I always want to be on set or something like that. They'll be like, hey, we need you for, I think it was some TV series, I forget, it was a long time ago. But I literally stood in the family photo and I was just like in a suit and beside mom, and then they photoshopped someone's face over my face, and that was it.
I shot an episode of American Horror Story, and in that they actually had a day where we did a photo shoot. Like literally, it's like 2 seconds in the episode where Evan Peters is like choking me, and like he's like, "You seem happy, like you'd be good for Violette, like because he wants to kill me." So I'm in that. Anyway, watch the show. But they literally just frame across a couple pictures showing me hanging out with my high school buddies.
Yeah.
But we had a full day of shooting with those high school buddies to get those few seconds. It's like, what the heck?
And that's crazy, right? Why you say you think of that? Like it is a split second on screen.
Yep.
But that's how dedicated some of these showrunners are. Where they're like, I don't care if it's a second. I want that photo to be legit. Let's bring people in and make it look like a family photo. So detail. Everyone has a job to do on set. And don't ever do someone else's job on set.
Nope.
We talked about that yesterday. I remember one of the first sets I was on, and I'm very much raised with, I have two older sisters and mother helping out. Chris do this, Chris. And so if something needs to be moved, I'm like, okay. There was a light stand, and I was standing there, and it was like, hey, can we get that light stand moved? And I went to move the light stand, and I was like, don't you touch. And I was like, what? He's like, that's my job. And I'm like, I'm like, I thought we were all just trying to get to the same finish line of creating something nice. But it's like, if I move that light stand, I'm doing somebody else's job. It looks bad on the person's job whose it is because he's not doing his job well enough to get that moved. And
which is interesting because like I'm reading Jackie Chan's book right now, like Never Grow Up, and he talks about when he was in China, everyone does everyone's job.
Yeah.
But then when he came here, he had to not do it because he kept getting yelled at because they're about efficiency. They want it done as fast as possible. Here, he's like, we're moving in slow motion. It takes so long compared to what he's used to.
And it's, you know how like you're an actor and you'll literally be standing on your mark and there's like something that needs to be moved right there. Or like even if you want to move the tape, it's like everybody you can. And it kind of feels a little like, you know, I don't want to say pretentious, but it's like you want to stand there and help, but they're like, no. And if you're looking around, they're trying to line up the shot, you're like, you have to look where your mark is, because the guy's looking at his screen going, Chris, can you keep your, I'm like, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was like, just look at the X. And I'm like, and you gotta be like, and everyone's moving around, and they're like, move that light stand. I'm like, no, I can't, I gotta stand.
I was on a set recently, and I was literally near a door that they need open because they want to catch like the eye line of somebody behind it. And they said, can someone open the door because it got shut. So I tried opening it, and they yelled at us. Like, that's my job to open the door. It's like, literally, I can't. Just like, I didn't have to leave my mark. I was just gonna like.
Yeah.
But
it's just very, very tricky. Very tricky.
Do you guys, when you got cast as your roles, did you kind of want to contact past Rangers and be like, hey, do you guys have any advice for this? Or did you want to try and play it off on your own, try and figure it out for yourself?
I went back and like rewatched a whole bunch of Power Rangers just to refresh my memory. I watched all the Time Force. I watched the Japanese counterpart of mine. I watched Mega Force and Super Mega Force. I watched like
I did the exact opposite.
I went to the bar.
I would say I Googled, but we didn't have Google. It was like Yahoo or whatever it was. But no, I went in just blind and
MySpace. Anyone know?
Well, I think we I sat down with Greg and was like, okay, what do you want from this character? And really, I think the character building of me being slightly, well, it's a PG-13 accurate word, slightly not liked. To being slightly liked, and yeah, just describing that because, like, again, the character building of us being, unique in our own way and very, very different from each character. Even though the five of us are a team, each character is so different in every franchise. I think that was the biggest part, is that I wanted to make sure that the character was identified as what they wanted it to be. So
there's something one of my old acting coaches used to say, that if a character is enough like you write NAN at the top, which is for no acting necessary. My character, Tyler, I mean, yes, there are parts of him that aren't me, but I'm so like him with the energy and like the adventure. It wasn't hard for me to play him.
Yeah.
I stepped into his shoes, was like, okay, I'm just being myself, but like at a higher energy level all the time.
Yeah.
And so I watched the episodes and stuff just because I wanted to remember the beats and how they fight and all, the whole kind of cohesiveness of Rangers.
Yeah.
It's not like I needed to watch them to like understand how to play my character.
Yeah.
My character is different than all those others.
Yeah. I was completely opposite. Like, Sky was too serious and Chris himself is a joker. Like, I was like the prankster on set. Like, even back in the day, so there was no smartphones, and there was just flip phones and stuff. So we would have a prank on set where people would leave their phones around. And so you'd go into someone's flip phone, you didn't need a password or anything like that, you could just turn their ringer on. And so, if somebody's ringer went off during a take,
They got slabbed. Yeah.
And so a slab is like a case of beer for the end of the week. And so we would like literally, someone would be walking around and be like, okay guys, we're over here. And I'd walk and be like, yeah, okay. And I was like, just tie my shoe. And then I'd grab someone's phone and like turn it to a ringer and put it back and be like, okay, we're lined up. And then I'd like signal somebody and then they would call that person's phone. It'd be like on a Friday too, right? Like, or like a Thursday, nothing like on a Monday morning, because we're still business on Monday morning. And then we'd be like during a take and everyone's kind of like smirking and and it'd be like slap, the whole set would go slap. And that was kind of like the prankster stuff that, and then when the cameras were rolling, I had to be like dead serious. And actually that's how Greg and I got to working together the next time after, is because he met when we started to get to know each other. He's like, dude, you're like never serious on set. He's like, you're always joking around. He's like, I think I got a role for you that I want you to look at. And it was this movie Laboo that was more of a quirky kind of comedic relief of a Goonies meets E.T. kind of version of the movie. But yeah, completely opposite, because as soon as Sky barely smiled even.
Yeah.
And even the first time I did smile, he's like, I saw you smile finally. And I was like, what was I smiling at? So yeah, very different.
I think we open it up to the floor next. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, yes, big guy.
I seen you today and I got this from you.
You did, I remember. That's really cool.
Very cool
Temporary tattoo.
Very cool tattoo.
And I know its name, Rexy.
You do? Wow. Awesome.
I like it.
Do you like Rexy? Is that your favorite one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what? I watched all the Power Rangers already.
All of them?
All of them?
Uh-huh.
Are you ready for Beast Morphers, the new one?
Yep.
Wow. I want to see it too, actually. I'm excited for it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What was each of your favorite, like besides your own season, what was your, do you have a favorite
I guess.
He
season?
liked mine, I'm sure.
I get asked this, and I always got to stay true to SPD, man. Besides the original was like, again, because I was young.
And the rock music.
Yeah,
Come on.
like, you know,
There's
just YTV before school. Like, I'd get up early to watch a show. And which kid wants to wake up early to go to school?
Nope. I liked, again, Mighty Morphin too, but Time Force is really good. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people didn't like Mega Force, and I get it, like storyline-wise sometimes, it didn't always make sense with Gosei being like, well, there's a simple explanation for that, and everybody goes, it's literally, they ask you a question, and you're like, Jake, he's like, why did my suit change from black to green? It's because they used two different Sentais and mixed them, and Gosei, the leader's like, there's a logical explanation for that, and then they just cut.
They cut.
They literally just wouldn't tell you. It's just like, come on!
Oh, I know the reason.
Yeah.
Cut.
Yeah.
They gotta come back. Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know, it was fun. Like, it was so, for some reason I enjoyed it.
It's
Yeah.
interesting now, though, and I find that's the way the world is changing now with television and movies and media. Is that before we would, like, growing up in my age, you know, we'd look at movies and we didn't need those questions answered before.
Yeah.
Everything was like we just were like, oh, it's because it's because.
Yeah.
And now, you know, kids nowadays, it's like they need a why. They need to know how it became this and where that came from and where'd you get A and where'd you get B. And I mean, it's great, but as a writer, man, you got to cover your bases. You got to cover your bases 100% much more than you did back in the 90s for sure.
Well, that's what we were saying about the Time Force thing for your show is you have to explain why it's there, why this happened.
And like literally, like what you said, they were like, okay, so Sky's gonna be holding his a Red Ranger's helmet. Okay, what do we have? And they went to the props and we're like, okay, we got this. Here, let's give him this one. And nobody at the time was like, that's Time Force. And like, his dad is not gonna match the photo. And you know, because there's a scene too where like, why didn't they just take a Jason Fong photo? Because there's a scene they shot, and I think it was a New Zealand actor, where there's a bit of a battle, and which is very interesting because, you know, when you're fighting as a ranger, your helmet's always on. And there was a bit of a scene where my dad's like, coming out of the rubble, and he's like, and his mask is off. So you see his face, and it's like...
And he's in a Time Force suit?
Yeah, he's in a Time Force suit. You know, and then it's like they didn't think of...
No.
They're like,
This will be cool for that.
we don't, there's no Google, no one's gonna Google it, don't worry.
Right.
If you could write your own type of Ranger series, what would it be?
I don't know. I'm a toss-up between... I mean, I would be surrounded... yeah, go.
I have the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how they always have, like, sometimes, like, okay, this ranger has, like, this element, power, whatever, like, depending on the season, they have elements. I think it'd be cool to have one ranger who is, like, multicolored to start. So, like, instead of starting with, like, 5, there's just one Power Ranger who has all the power, but he needs to recruit other rangers, or she, whatever, and they go and find people worthy, and they test them. So, like, the first 10 episodes is, like, picking their team, and then he can, like, give his extra colored powers to other rangers, and then make a team, because, like, fighting with all of them as yourself isn't, like, you can't watch your own back.
Isn't as
you know?
efficient.
Yeah, so you need to spread it out. So I think that'd be cool.
Like the Ranger starts out as the avatar.
Yeah, he
Power
starts off
and then
overpowered, and
Yeah.
then, like, gives the power to the other rangers. I think that'd be cool.
Actually, that's been a whole...
And then when they come together as a Megazord, it makes sense, because they're recombining all the power into one. Yeah, that just came to me.
Well, kind of like a
yesterday.
Captain Power from back in the day, right? So
Yeah.
Captain Planet, yeah,
In a
sorry,
sense,
yeah.
yeah, but like reverse, like already Captain Planet, and then yeah,
That's
that's pretty cool.
Sign
I'd
me up
watch
for
it.
that one.
Yeah,
Sign me up for that one.
that kind of stuff for you.
Okay.
You know, the bad guy.
Were you influenced by the Japanese versions of your series in any way?
I was.
It was a lot more gruesome. Like the Japanese version was allowed to show blood, and like, you know, it was a lot. Yeah, I mean,
People died.
I didn't get a chance to see it before we did the show. We saw it kind of during they would show us. But yeah, not an influence in the sense of, you know, character building wise. It was just whatever Greg and I talked about. But some of their movements and how they fought. I think that was one of the things too, but it's also coming back to our training. I mean, you know, you're a gymnast, and I think your kick could probably be amazing now. I'm a little bit rusty, but even when, you know, things like a kick or like a punch, and I saw you talking about this in your interview, you know, when you punch in real life, it's like this. On film, you got to be like, smile for the camera, and then wide, and you're like, don't block your face, so you can't be, you know, it's just learning movements like that and keeping your legs straight and trying to make it look as realistic as professional as possible is what I took, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, watching Guelph Rouge, I watched it pretty much during the like stunt training time because my stunt double had the footage and he gave it to me to watch. So it was just, we had totally different things on our set, and then we found Easter eggs, like Yoshi, my Blue Ranger, and I found ways to input it. So like there's a part where we do the dance, the samba, in ours in an episode, and then there's another part, I can't remember, but like we try to find things from the Japanese one that like ultra fans could find. And so, you know, cool. That way, they realized that we were fans too.
Yeah, so that's cool.
So one thing for SPD, the A Squad was also repurposed in space helmets.
In space helmets?
They just put extra stuff on it.
Ah, okay.
That was A Squad. But anyway, my question was actually, I was curious about, Chris, you did, I think, 40 episodes in your season?
Yeah.
And Brennan, you did 2 seasons of 20.
Of 22. But 2 were like recap-ish.
Okay.
Not like a Halloween and a Christmas special.
So what was like the difference between doing 40 at once and
Did you go
40
home
two separate?
for a hiatus, or were you there the whole time?
No, well, we gave us a choice to go home for Christmas, but to me, I was like, okay, 18 hours back to Canada for cold? No thanks. I'm going to Fiji in Australia.
I went back.
But yeah,
But I got married.
Yeah, Brandon and I took off and went backpacking for, we did a week in Australia.
You're saying Brendan, right?
Yeah, Brandon.
Sorry, not Brendan.
Yeah,
If people are confused, the Red Ranger and his.
Yeah, Red Ranger.
Brendan.
So, because Matt brought, I think Alicia went back, and Matt went back because they all both had significant others, and then Monica came and met Brandon and I. Brandon and I went to Australia, and then Brandon went and met his family, and then I went to Fiji by myself and traveled. I'm a traveler, I'm a backpacker, and I just didn't, mathematically, I was like 18 hours for like, to get to Christmas, to then say hi to a bunch of people, then get back on a plane. I took some vacation time. But again, like he said, that they, to the amount of episodes they shot in a time frame, I don't know how that differed, but
Well, it's just weird because yours was like 40 1 year, then
yeah,
40 2 years.
and it took us 10 days to shoot an episode.
They probably aired his more, like, they took a huge hiatus over the 2 years that my seasons aired.
Okay.
You just had reruns for like several months, and then you got new ones. So his probably just aired more consistently.
And then each character have a backstory?
Yeah, like we had a caveman, and Nikes.
Okay.
My dad went missing for 10 years.
Yeah, see, there was two. Each ranger had 3 storylines. So there was the pilot episode, the second and third, and then the 4th episode, there was like, they would pick one character and they'd have a backstory or a dilemma they had to deal with, and they did that 3 times over the 40. So
Ours wasn't split that even.
Yeah, so like I had a best friend come back, the bracelet thing.
Got it.
And then one of my other episodes was like my body was taken over by an evil alien.
As
And then
it is.
the last, I had actually had a double episode where I have to avenge my father's death. The episode ends with me going and interrogating him and him escaping through one of my tears. His name is Reflector. And then the next episode, the finale, is me coming back and fighting him and avenging my father's death as the Red Ranger. That's that. Yeah.
That's
Oh yeah,
sounds
dude.
like I
There's
might rewatch it.
the one episode is like where Jack's like, you know, he's like my dad's killer is laughing at me. He's like, "You'll never be good like you," and I'm like, about to break down, and Brandon hands me his Red Ranger, or his morpher. He's like, "Do it for your father," and I'm like, "Are you serious?" And I grab it and I morph, and everyone's like, "Wah!"
That's so cool.
So it was kind of cool. That was good. That was one of my favorite episodes. Those 2 continued ones. Yeah.
Where are we on time, Jeremy?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Any more questions? Any other questions? Any
Comments,
comments?
concerns?
One comment on it. So after watching all of them, I noticed that it's very formulaic. Where, like, because for a little bit I went back and I'm like, okay, I'll watch the first episode and watch the episode where there's a new Power Ranger introduced that you don't know who it is, and then you find out who it is, and then the final episode, I'm like, okay, they're all following the same pattern with the episodes in the middle. Those are big different. And I noticed when I was watching it when I was younger, because I watched it all the way through when I was younger too, and then kept going with it. But I always loved the Power Ranger that was the unknown, like the one that Shadow Ranger.
There was also one we did, the Omega Ranger.
Yeah.
Who was a ball of light in our episodes.
Mhm.
Yeah, wasn't that, were they like a human?
Wait, see again, I think he was
Can't
from the
remember.
future. He was from a different world.
Omega?
That's how he,
Yeah, Omega, right?
I think
Yes.
Omega. Yeah, no, he was in, but I think
Because
Omega-
on set it was, we were talking to a tennis ball. And we'd be on set 5 of us and they're like waving a tennis ball and we're like, okay, look serious. And we're like following this ball of light and then all of a sudden a ranger would appear.
That's one thing too. It would have been really hard because a lot of the monsters that you guys fought look ridiculous. And
This
trying
was
to
before green screen, by the way, too,
Yeah.
in 2004.
like trying to act serious about these creatures you're about to fight, and even with the leader of your Power Rangers with the big dog head,
Yeah.
trying to act.
Well, see, and you know, when you were asking the question about the Japanese version, right? And again, to each, you know, I respect everyone's creativity, but Greg, I got to give kudos. Like he put a lot of his own time and his own money into our series of creating aliens that the prosthetics were real, even on a background actor. Like
real
there's.
prosthetic sounds.
Yeah, it's a paradox. But like a prosthetic where, because I've done a couple expos with him where, you know, aliens that would be sitting in our command center at a computer screen, no camera time, not saying anything, maybe a word, like they would come in 3 hours early, you know, they would get cheeks glued onto their face, eyebrows glued on, so that when they did this stuff, their faces would move. And, you know, Greg spent a lot of time doing this. And Doggy Kruger's version versus the Japanese version, it's a foam dragon head, whereas Doggy Kruger, there was guys controlling his eyes, guys controlling his mouth, guys controlling his ears. There was, you know,
Yeah.
off the set. And when you're working with them, you know, you're trying to do your lines, and you'd hear it, and John Toohey, amazing actor, would have to be shouting almost like Rangers, and you could barely hear his voice through this dog head, and he could see out the mouth, and then there was the eyes on top. So everything that he had to do when he was looking at us would have to be like, his arms would have to be higher to level out where his eyes were in his regular body versus his other body.
Well, then when he goes into the Ranger costume, his snout just disappears.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there were some jokes about that, because one of the first things I said was like, oh yeah, they're gonna believe his head fits into this helmet. And I opened myself up for, they believe yours fits inside yours. And I was like, thanks guys.
It's like a reverse Pinocchio. You know?
Yeah. But yeah, kudos to those guys that did the prop work in those prosthetics, man. They made for because like you said, you know, he did that for Kruger, and he wanted to do that for some of the other monsters, and they were like, no, you can't rechange everything.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I guess we got to go with this rubber head.
And that really tells that it's a labor of love that he was passionate about this show and
Yeah.
wanted it to be as realistic for the people watching
Yeah.
it as it could be.
Yeah. That's huge. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, for prosthetics, and especially nowadays with technology and all this, there's a lot of stuff that you can put on your face that makes it safe, easy to remove. And you know, you look at some of the movies that come out, the way they transform some actors, both sci-fi and you know like Vice, that's being up for the Oscars with Dick Cheney, and how they conformed, you know, Christian Bale.
He also destroys his body though.
Oh yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. But it's all interesting. It's just you can make up anybody and make look like anything.
Exactly.
I heard something that if when the Rangers wore their helmets, they couldn't really see out of them. Is that
Depends on the season.
True.
I guess. Like,
Yeah.
you can see in mine, it bogs up easily. So some people say use like shampoo and then walk and like dry it.
This doesn't even fit on like I can't snap it closed. I can put it on, but
This one fits me.
yeah, this is more prop time.
Oh, were like these ones? Was this one fitted for you, and then that one's from Japan, or?
No, this one I just Legendary Props. He's the gentleman that does Power Ranger props,
And
he
cosplay.
he got this for me, and that's it. Like but the ones that the stunt doubles use, like it snapped on. They had almost like those car racer whites that baklavas that would kind of protect them or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for sitting down with us. It's been great.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, it's I was really glad to kind of get an inside view on Power Rangers just from being a fan for so many years. It was great meeting you guys.
You as well.
I want to thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah.